It's another Wednesday night. This is the last show on the loaded Wednesday night slate. You just saw me a little while back on the Pundits Pundit. We had some really great dialogue, so please go and like and subscribe to the Sideline Sports Network. Take a look at that episode as well as many other things. But this is Cubfidential. I'm your executive producer, Denzel Snipes, and we've got a pretty loaded show for you. We got a special guest. You're going to meet him here in a minute. But first, let's go ahead and bring in our host. And he is the Brooklyn bad boy who now resides in Chicago. So he's a pseudo Chi-Town bad boy. But let's bring him on in, JB Ellis. Come on in here, brother.
What's going on? How you doing, Denzel?
Doing pretty good, pretty good. You ready to get the show going?
We got to do something because the Cubs aren't doing much lately. What's going on with that?
It probably a small drop off, but I think they'll pick it back up.
We're going to talk to Scott Morganroth now, and let's start off with the Florida series, where they got swept and lost three in a row, all one-run games. So let's bring Scott in. Thank you, Denzel.
All right. Well, glad to be back on, JB. Yeah, the Marlins definitely got the better end of the Cubs. Of course, they'll meet this weekend up in the Windy City, but the Miami Marlins are an intriguing team because Don Mattingly was replaced by Skip Schumacher, who I've yet to meet because I haven't been out there on days where they have media availability when he's there. But to me, the Cubs are an interesting team because they went out there, and the guy that I was impressed with on Sunday was Dansby Swanson. In this game, the guy went out there and had a couple of hits. He did. And I think that as the year goes on, this is going to be a good move for the Cubs. I really like them. You know, the Cubs remind me of a team where you have a lot of everybody else's scraps that they're all trying to find a new home over in Chicago. Ian Happ's the guy that they brought in. Cody Bellinger, obviously from the LA Dodgers, right? Eric Hosmer's been around. So, you know, when you have guys that are looking for fresh starts, this is indeed, okay, the place to go. Now, I don't have a problem with David Ross. I really don't. And I'll tell you why I don't have a problem. I like when catchers become managers because they see the game differently than anybody else. Hey, I was a catcher when I played Little League ball. And I'm going to tell you, I used to get in the ear of the umpires. I used to go ahead and take those mound visits. I would even get in the batter's ear and start talking to him and disrupt his concentration. So, you know, so David Ross to me, again, we'll have to see. The best part about baseball, though, JB, to me, is that it is a marathon and not a sprint. And so I don't think we know what version of the Cubs you're going to see. But the Miami Marlins are an interesting team. It's not like they lost to a team like the Oakland A's, okay, that you can just pretty much put it on the board, you know, as your buddy Hawk Harrelson would say. So I think the Cubs will go down to me as a very intriguing story all year. And when you look at their coaching staff, too, you know, you got David Ross. Andy Green was the bench coach, I believe. Wasn't he the manager for the Padres, right? If I remember
I
right.
believe so, yeah.
Right. And then you have Tommy Hotvoy, your pitching coach. Dustin Kelly is your hitting coach. But Mike Napoli is your first base coach. And Mike Napoli has a wealth of championship experience. So he brings you something there. And of course, you have Willie Harris, the third base coach. And the thing that's really interesting about it is I love there and see the input of how some of these coaches end up turning out with these teams. I really do, you know, and I think that's the biggest important thing that people have to understand. So I think the Cubs will be fine. You know, again, it's still early, but I'll tell you, the big indicator, JB, will be over the weekend if the Marlins get the best of them again.
So why are the Marlins doing so well in one-run games this year? I believe that they're almost perfect in one-run games so far.
They were 10 for 10 the last I had looked, so they're really more than perfect. So pitching, defense, and let me just tell you who the Marlins roster is, okay? And you'll get an idea. John Birdie's a really good, sound defensive player. Garrett Cooper, of course, went out that day with a stomach ache. But the real wild card here, though, JB, is Luis Arias, who was last year's batting champion, and they made that trade for Pablo Lopez. Jorge Soler brought in for the Braves, so he didn't do anything for you defensively. Gene Segura, you know, I'm sure you've heard of him. He's with the Marlins as well. Jazz Chisholm. So you have a combination of a lot of guys playing good defense. The Marlins' strength is really their pitching staff. They had to go out there and acquire hitters and hoping that they'll be able to score a lot more runs than they did a year ago.
So what are the keys for the Cubs coming up this weekend to, get back on the right foot against the Marlins?
Well, let's face the reality. Your bullpen has to be strong. They really do. I know that as I look at my notes and I look at the 3 games that we have here, okay, remember this. Those games there that were decided, Miami wins, 7-6, okay? The other one was 3-2 and 4-3. Now, I will say this. So you've got to make sure your bullpen is strong against this team. It's not like they're the Sultan of SWAT in Miami. They play in a pitcher's ballpark anyhow. So it'll be interesting to see that when the dynamic changes over at Wrigley Field, whether the Marlins struggle. Now, I will say one thing I really love about the Cubs, okay? They draw, but here are the attendance numbers, okay, over the weekend. On Friday night, on April the 28th, again, we're talking Friday in Miami, okay? Miami 3-2 win, 12,340 showed up. Saturday, April 29th, Miami with a 7-6 win, 14,994 show up. And then on Sunday, I could have sworn I had a geography lesson because to me, 20,345 showed up for the Miami 4-3 win. And you can tell that there were a ton of people from Chicago and Lone Depot Park. And I didn't know where I was at. I realized at times I might have memory loss, but I didn't know if I was in Chicago or Miami. I do know that I had to travel I-95 to get to Miami. And really, I'm usually accustomed to traveling I-94. So the key is you got to outscore the Marlins. You got to take advantage of your windy conditions and hope and pray that your bullpen holds up. Those are the keys.
So what do you think about the Cubs starting pitcher, what you saw over the weekend?
Well, I mean, the guy that I happened to see was, I'll go over it right now, Justin Steele. This guy, I like this guy. I really do. I mean, obviously gave up 3 runs, but 2 of them were earned. But he had a really strong outing. Throws 81 pitches and 58 for a strike. So I saw him. I was totally impressed. I have no issue with him. But again, what you do with starting pitching early versus how you stretch these guys over the year, time will tell.
Interesting. So what's your outlook for Miami for this year in the NL East?
Gosh, you know what? If you would have talked to me at the beginning of the year, I probably told you they'd win 65, 70 games. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. I'm probably thinking the Marlins under Skip Schumacher could go maybe 70, 75, and maybe even hit 80. I don't know. I still need to see more of them. I've seen a couple games, and they've looked all right. But again, the key for the Miami Marlins is Sandy Alcantara, the reigning Cy Young Award winner, has to become himself again. Although they have a lot of other strong pitchers, Sandy needs to get back and get righted really quickly. They have other good pitchers on the roster that I can tell you right now that I really, really like. And one of them is Edward Cabrera, is a pretty good pitcher. And let's see what we've got here as well. And Jesus Luzardo. So those are a couple guys to watch out for the Marlins roster. I would say 75, 80 compared to what my early projections were. And again, I'll have a better gauge when I finally get to know what Skip Schumacher is. I've never met the guy yet because the 2 games thus far I've covered on Sunday, and there's really not a whole lot of media availability. But to me, though, nobody will be better than Don Mattingly, but that's another time for another day. But I'll be curious to see what Skip's about. I mean, he's a young guy, relates to the younger players well anyways. So that's what people tell me. I'll take their word until I can formulate my opinion through interaction.
Well, Scott, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to come on this week. Hopefully, if you're available next Tuesday after the next series, love to hear your thoughts on it. But where can people find you?
Well, there's no doubt if I'll be available. I will be available because you just invited me on. So I will be on. Take that to the bank, okay? Well, you can find me at South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. Please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. That's really huge for us because we're trying to build our audience just as you guys are graciously doing yours as well. And our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Candy Edling does an unbelievable job putting it together with all of our shows as well.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, she's unbelievable. So yeah, no, I'll be here next Tuesday night to give you some more input from what I'm able to see. I guess the main question is will the weather conditions be differently that will go ahead and alter things? Because remember, when you go to Lone Depot Park, JB, you know what the temperature is in there?
What is it?
72 degrees because it's air conditioning. I can't say that at Wrigley Field, man.
No,
You
no.
know,
The weather's supposed to be pretty decent this weekend, from what I've seen, but we'll see what happens as the week progresses, and we'll definitely talk with you next Tuesday and get more information from what you saw.
you got it. Thanks for having me on tonight. It's been a pleasure, and I always enjoy working with you, JB Ellis. Thank you very much for allowing me to come on. Thank you.
You too. Enjoy, Scott. Thanks. All right. So next up, we have the one and only, the pundit's pundit, Mr. Ubbs himself, joining us, and he's going to talk a variety of topics. So let's bring in Jacob Christer.
What is going on? How's it going
Mr.
tonight?
Ubbs. Oh, it's been a day. It's been a day.
Trust me, I know.
So let's talk. Let's go back to when the Cubs were winning baseball games,
Right.
because the last 6 games have been horrible. Let's go to when we were playing the Padres. We took 2 out of 3 for the Padres in Chicago. What was the key to that series?
Key hitting, and then there was some tremendous pitching in the series. But one of the biggest things that we saw early that we're not seeing right now is timely everything, a timely strikeouts, the timely good play on the bases. You know, from defense, timely home run, timely everything. We'd see something like that right now. See, the thing is, it's 162. That's what happens. We see at 162, you get the struggles that we're getting right now. It's like you can never tell. It's like we might get the Dodgers again. We might get we also might get swept by the Pirates or the Cardinals and then sweep the Padres. You can never tell. That's what 162 does.
Yeah, it's kind of scary when you go into Florida, you get swept in all 1-run games.
Well, it's like we lost 3 or 4.
No, they got swept in Florida.
Wasn't it 3 or 4? Oh, I don't know.
No, it was a 3-game series. Then Washington, they won 1 of 3.
Yeah.
And they got 1 more tomorrow.
But yeah, it's like, and that's what's going to happen that is going to happen in 162 games. It's like, but the biggest thing about it is that at least the pitching staff is keeping them in it. You're talking about the 1-run games. See, that's how they lost last year. They lost a lot of 1-run games. That's a Ross loss.
Yeah, there were a lot of Ross losses. I mean, I didn't get a chance to watch much of the weekend series. It was a busy weekend. But I do know that the pitching staff definitely kept them in. There wasn't a lot of timely hitting. Miami is known for their starting pitching. Got to give them credit for that.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to at least take 1 out of 3 from Miami. But whatever.
I get the thing about Miami is considering the heat and they got Pat Riley, considering all the players and the newest cool coach on the Dolphins. There is Sandy Alcantara, don't you get me wrong, and a couple of others, but the Marlins are the least cool team in the league in comparison to the other 2. Yeah. And it's like, I'd love to see the Marlins get really cool, get a new stadium, get new, just all that kind of stuff. I'd love for that because Miami's just a cool city. It needs, Alcantara, I think, is, but they just don't have the same oomph that the Dolphins and the Heat do.
So let's go through, let's talk about Patrick Wisdom.
Sure.
Guy has 11 home runs through 29 games. Is he the best hitter on the team?
No, because a home run doesn't make that. Because the home run doesn't make it. It means you're hot and you're hitting it right on the barrel of the bat. It means, power hitters get hot like that. But the best hitter on the team right now, and I'm just saying this, it's Hoerner, Nico Hoerner. It's like he's our leadoff guy, and it's like, and I don't care if it's just singles or whatever. He's leading it off and he's getting there. So it's like, you're hitting 340. Patrick Wisdom he's gonna struggle just like he would do. He'll be the number 1 home run hitter. He'll probably get 30, 35.
You know what I'm impressed with, though? Speaking of Ross, how I never have anything good to say about him.
Right.
The lineup's been pretty consistent this year.
I know. Five players in 300.
He hasn't been switching around guys. Guys have their spots, and it's good to see. I think it helps the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
It's they're struggling the last couple of games, but overall, they've had the timely hits all year. I mean, get a bad week. Baseball's 162 games. You're going to have a bad week here or there. It's just they're having a bad week against really bad teams, which is the problem.
Well, part of the things what I brought up last year when we were doing Confidential, I would always say Ross needed to start in the minors and learn, and instead of just because where he learned was from Joe Madden, who was doing this for 25 years, different things and stuff like that.
Right.
And so you get a guy who's sitting next to you for a couple of years learning from somebody who's kind of off the beaten path. And the thing is, if you don't learn the basics, you can't go off the beaten path. Now it's kind of, just keeping a regular lineup, not just switching everything up when people make mistakes. That's basics. That's basics of managing. I think it looks like he might be finally learning those.
And even with the bullpen, I mean, if you look at how he's used them throughout the last week and a half, 2 weeks, guys have their roles out of the bullpen. He's not really staying with the starters longer, but I mean, that's Major League Baseball right now. That's the way it is. But guys in the bullpen seem to have their role. Leiter's been doing phenomenal. A lot. The relievers have been really well. You have Steele, who's been unbelievable. Stroman has been unbelievable.
Yep.
So this team is set up to. I mean, they're not going to be the best team in baseball.
No.
But they're set up to compete, which is what you hope for.
Well, it's July. I brought it up on the last show. That's July. It goes to get it to July, stay around second place, and see. Truthfully, remember, it's friends with Seiya Suzuki. See if you can go get the Shohei.
Yep, exactly. Let's go over to an injury. Gomes goes down, and that also could be part of the problem right now with the team because Gomes was kind of like the leader behind the scenes, which he took that over this year, and he was flourishing, but he went down, and the Cubs called up Miguel Amaya from AA. Tennessee. What's your thoughts on Amaya?
Well, fine, but you're just getting a AA guy. Mistakes. The pitching's going to be completely different. The way you're calling the game's going to be different. That was the thing with Gomes. It's like I heard this from a Cardinals fan. On Twitter. Actually, they said I've watched Gomes the last 4 games, and the Cubs, no matter whether they win or lose, play it's the pitching is downright good. It's downright good. It's a well called game, and then it's well called game. He's basically the quarterback of the defense. You getting all that, and then you go on the other end and with the Cardinals, and they're struggling, and that's Wilson Contreras. Yes. And it's like, and they're not happy with him, which I'm kind of shocked with, but I'm starting to see it now because he was still the usual the hitter. He was still the usual pipe. He piped up the whole team, but the Cubs the last couple of years on pitching just weren't that good. He wasn't calling great games. So now he's doing this with the Cardinals. So it's like, and you're not going to be Yadier.
Right, exactly. Let's go to the Cub or Dud before we go into my favorite topic tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Cub or Dud. Drew Smyly is going to finish with the 3rd most wins in the rotation.
No, because that's a dud because that's going to be Hendricks. It's going to be Hendricks.
You think Hendricks is going to come back and overtake him?
Yeah, it's like that'll be Hendricks. But no, Smyly there's nothing wrong to be 4th on that team by itself because he's going to be better than most of the rotations in the other league. You know what I'm saying? So Smyly looks great. Don't get that wrong. Smyly looks great, but here's at the same time. I mean, are these people on this team? Are the players on the team? Are the hitters on the team going to hold up? And then will he struggle if they don't?
Makes sense. So we're gonna finish off with my favorite topic of the night, our Hot Cub Time Machine, 1993 film Rookie of the Year, starring Thomas Ian Nicholas. Tell us how much you love that movie. Tell us how you really feel.
I was sick last week, and now I just got sick worse than I was then. That's a horrible movie. Well, here's what killed me. What killed me is I remember all the way back, and my memory goes all the way back to this. would get me right then and there. I mean, of course, it's the stupid fantasy. Oh, I've got a broken arm. Oh, now I can go 100 miles an hour. So now I'm a 12-year-old on the mound. I can't take that. Can't take that fantasy crap for one thing. And then I give Harry Carey credit for trying to make that legitimate. So it's like they're trying to being the announcer. But the thing that got me was one of the parts at the end of the game when the fantasy arm is going out. And stuff like that, and it's in the middle. I guess it's the middle of the World Series or whatever, everything like that. And he throws the guy out at second, even though he has no arm left. It's the same distance.
Yes, it's
the
pretty
same
wild.
distance, but people don't think it's the same distance. So it's like, how is he? If he can't throw home, if he can't throw to the home, how is he?
So, I mean, we're pretty much done this week. We're on a down note, losing 5 out of 6. We got a game at noon tomorrow, Central Time, against the Washington Nationals, who are abysmal. Although C.J. Abrams, who they got in the trade with the Padres, is playing really well in the Soto trade. He looks like he's going to be the real deal. Good pickup for them, but they're a horrible team. Can they salvage and get a split of the series?
I can see that, sure. Because see, here's the thing that I'm thinking about how bad Ross gets at certain times. Remember, they hit 13-0, and they haven't hit hardly since. And it's like they did this last year, won 21-0, and 21-0, and then they didn't hit for 2 weeks. It's like something about him. He doesn't keep. This team doesn't keep consistency.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows what's going on, but I think that they have a good shot at winning tomorrow, splitting the series, coming home and righting the ship. But where can people find you, Mr. Ubbs?
Oh, nowhere. I'm so bored. I lay on the couch. I mean, that kind of. Okay. At Jake the Pundit on the Twitter, where you can find my absolutely politically correct views. Jake the Pundit 1 on Jake the Pundit 1 #1 on TikTok. Then I am on Sunday nights. I'm on Basket Bros. Monday nights, Pundit Views. Wednesday nights, 3 shows. Pundits, Sports Exchange. This Thursday nights, once in a while, I will do. Whenever we get some time, I will do Yin and Yang with TJ Sanson. Fridays when I'm called, just kind of a bullpen deal. I'm on Gauntlet when I'm a little bullpen when I need somebody. So then and then I'm working on a couple movies also.
Sounds good, Mr. Ubbs. We'll see you next week. Until next week, this has been another episode of Confidential. Hopefully we'll feel better in a week from now after we play the Marlins again. And we got St. Louis coming in, so we're going to have a lot to talk about next week.
That scares me with them being 10-20. That scares me right now.
We'll definitely talk next week. But until then, everybody have a great night, and make sure you're following Sideline Sports for all your great shows.
Yep.